Memory transcription subject, Chief Hunter Isif, Arxa Dominion Sector Fleet. Date, standardized human time, December 4th, 2136. Once the Terrans realized I was awake, intelligence officers interrogated me from outside my cell. I spilled more than I should have perhaps, given how little Zhao cared for saving the Arxa. Cooperation with the humans was the only way to prove I was on their side. It was foolish to assume that their government could discern my intentions after chaos ravaged their power structures. But I couldn't stop thinking of Elias Meyer and his devotion to a better future. There had to be other humans out there who understood me. I just needed to discover a way to reach them. One of mankind's most interesting aspects was their branching opinions. Someone had to understand that the reasoning dictating that I was an enemy was flawed. My actions should speak my intentions. If the Zeruleans explained their story, it would at least prove that I was not planning on eating them. My acute hearing dialed in on footsteps down the hall, and I put on a collected exterior. It was a shame anger had gotten the better of me. I shouldn't have threatened the Secretary General, no matter how heated our dialogue was. That certainly didn't prove that I was a peaceable guy. The Terran interrogators had taken those threats seriously and kept outside of the cell. After all, they couldn't muzzle me if they wanted me to talk, right? The humans knew that I could kill them with a single bite. I wished I could prove that I was a predator of their caliber, not an animal like the prey believed. This newcomer approaching my cell would peer through the window like all the rest. I was a museum exhibit as much as a prisoner. Hello? I raised my voice, hoping this human could hear me. I am not your enemy. How do I prove that? My cell door clanged open, and an American general wearing camouflage strode in. The dust-colored hair suggested this was General Jones. She seemed unconcerned by my presence. There were no restraints to keep me from lunging at her or overpowering her. Interest sparked in my brain as she turned her back to me. The lack of fear was a stark difference from my earlier visitors. The primate moved a chair up beneath the camera and hopped atop the support. Jones switched the recording device off, her flimsy fingers finding the buttons with ease. Why did she not want this interaction on tape? Her demeanor didn't suggest that she intended to torture me. That would be inadvisable in my unfettered state. Confidence shone in Jones's green eyes as she seated herself right across from me. I kept my maw closed tightly and listened for her eventual declaration. The human leaned forward, lowering her voice to a hushed whisper.
Isif, I tried to get you to leave. I didn't want to bring you in like this,
Jones said. My nostrils flared. What? You knew this would happen?
You and Zhao both acted exactly as I predicted. You have a lot in common, but I digress. I don't have much time, so I'm going to make this quick.
Good. I'm listening.
I wanted to establish contact with you for a while, but you must not talk to Earth so directly in the future. You are going to get yourself killed. Honestly, it's a good thing that we can have a proper conversation in here.
I studied the human with narrowed eyes. This was quite different from her hostility on the call when she rebuked me at every turn. Jones spoke as though she was already aware that I was an asset. It made no sense why she'd allowed my capture if that were true. Nonetheless, this message returned a glimmer of hope. Killed? No, human. I'm good at what I do. I've managed not to wind up dead for decades, I growled. Jones flashed her teeth.
Oh, Isif, we both know you're not subtle. You have a conversation with Shaza and then immediately go to Earth? How would you explain that if an Arxer followed your trail?
I would say I threatened you at length to turn over Silis.
For all you know, Shaza bugged your ship. You're her rival and she might suspect your motives already. She tells Gizmo you're lying and bam, you're dead.
I see your point.
Shit. I'm glad you didn't say anything self-incriminating on our hail. I was trying to stop you from spilling the beans. For your sake, Isif, I will suggest ways to contact us on the down low going forward.
The Terran General extended her hand and dropped a tooth extension on the table. Jones pointed to her weak canines, then at my snout. I considered what she was asking for a moment before popping the crown onto my chipped tooth. The Dominion considered it weakness to fix fans, since those marks were hunting souvenirs. However, I could worry about that aspect at another time. Jones leaned back in her seat.
There's a hard drive inside that crown. Dead drop locations and codes, as well as a full lesson on spycraft.
So then, you know I'm an asset. Was all this really necessary? I huffed.
I'm afraid so. The amount of folks on Earth who know you're a human sympathizer, I can count them on 2 hands, and they're all part of 5 eyes. It's better that way.
I do not know what you're referring to, but if I understand, the Secretary General doesn't know about me. You don't trust Zhao?
It's not so simple. Zhao would want to keep records of your role accessible to a lot more eyes, and he would demand that we keep tabs on you. He might risk your welfare for short-term gain, or even blackmail you into going further than you are willing, whereas I see your full value.
I narrowed my eyes to slits. I'm not some Van Lil that can be pushed around. I'd like to see him try to blackmail me. Besides, would it be such a bad thing to have my allegiance documented?
The less people who know your true loyalties, the better. We don't know how many breaches occurred while Arxer roamed Earth, or whether the Dominion can access our databases. I'm protecting you from our insufficiency because I know we can't safeguard you yet.
And this is why Maya did not speak of me.
Well, I can't exactly ask him that, Isif. But Meyer was always a big picture guy, and I'd wager he clued at least one person in. Someone he trusted.
I lashed my tail against the floor, taking a moment to process her words. If Secretary General Zhao was oblivious to my actual agenda, that meant he was serious about locking me up forever. That also meant his aggravating behavior wasn't a performance. He believed I was a cerulean-eating fiend that plotted against Earth. How did General Jones plan to secure my release? Of the billions of humans in existence, fewer than 10 were briefed on my identity. I wasn't sure how to feel about the cybersecurity concerns or the assumptions on how Zhao would extort me. She also implied that I wasn't supposed to convince the United Nations of my fealty at all. I feel like I'm owed an apology in all of this. I've gone out of my way to help humans, and as an Arxer, I despise insults.
Listen, I'm sure Zhao's words don't sit right with you. It's not really his fault.
Jones continued.
A U.S. cyber division cracked Arxer communications this week. That transcript? My people wiped anything that would give you away to the larger intelligence community.
A growl rumbled in my throat. Nice going. So I guess it's totally okay that he had me tranquilized like a monster.
Zhao is paranoid about further attacks on Earth. His home nation represented 20% of the total death tally. His famous speech's tagline was "Not one more," referring to civilian casualties. And I can't say I disagree. He's willing to protect our home at all costs, and that includes against Arxer plots.
Whatever, human. You said we have little time, so I'll save my scathing remarks for another date. I presume the transcript is how you found out I'm on your side.
Isif, please. You continually underestimate us. We've been monitoring you since you set foot in New York. Every conversation, behavior, and holopad search was surveilled.
I see.
We've got your back, buddy. It's up to you what you want to do next. If you're doing this for a better tomorrow, great. If you just want glory in our adoration, don't bother. Nobody will know your name or what you've done, not as a spy.
I am not here for pride. I just want the centuries of death to be stopped. But how long must I slink around for?
That is also up to you. If you pull rank and use food as a motivator, I imagine your fleet would follow you in rebellion.
General Jones met my gaze with a knowing smirk.
You could offer refuge to those targeted by betterment, too.
Don't play coy. Could I count on human support? I prodded.
Only superficially. We don't want war with the entire Dominion if it's avoidable. We'd prefer to keep the fight against a single warlord.
Right.
The choice to start an open rebellion is irreversible. So I'm giving you options. You don't have to stick your neck out.
I contemplated her words in silence, knowing full well the risks of insurrection. As cowardly as terran espionage sounded, my own verdict was that Arxer revolutionaries weren't ready. Preparation for an uprising would increase our odds, and humanity might become amenable to our cause. I couldn't fault Earth's non-interference when I'd mused myself that a two-front war would be a steep task. The humans are new to the galaxy, and they're assaulting the Federation already. It's better to bide our time, at least a little. I slammed my paw on the table. We'll do it your way. Now get me out of here, Jones. You're gonna bust me out, right? The American general had the gall to laugh.
No. God, no. I'm not going to openly oppose Zhao. Someone else is going to order your release. Don't worry, she's already landed.
Who? That Inquemper from Alien Affairs? Sara Rosario, Odyssey officer.
I might have suggested that Governor Tarva come to facilitate the Zerulean rescue's return. She'll want to see the Arxer we captured.
Tarva? Fucking Tarva? That's your plan?
Yes. I thought you two were on good terms.
Tava is a Venlil for fuck's sake, I roared. I do like her, but the second a human says it was all a ruse, just acts of deceit for long-term suffering, she'll be happy to believe it. General Jones smiled.
For someone who supposedly is open-minded, you think quite lowly of the Venwell. Try having a little faith.
Faith? Faith? Are you fucking insane? Tava will never believe me. I wouldn't even hold it against her.
Ah, and they're cunning. Guess that means our time is up. Good luck.
I curled my lip at the human before turning my head dismissively. Jones scrambled to put the camera back on and hurried out of the room. I hoped the primate had another plan when the Tava maneuver blew up in her face. It was disheartening to think the progress I'd made with the Venlil leader would be undone for the sake of my cover. Claws clicked across the floor, tilled by the shuffles of dress shoes. Renewed anger surged through my veins as I detected Zhao's gravelly cadence. But I couldn't hold a grudge against the Secretary General if he had an incomplete set of facts. This wasn't any time to get emotional. I inhaled deeply and relaxed my facial muscles to look calm. Given that I did respect Governor Tava, it was worth an honest effort at convincing her. At least I could say I tried to win her over and that I kept a level head throughout our encounter. Perhaps one day I'd point to that fact to repair our relations. Hurtful accusations were bound to fly from the Venlil leader. I steeled myself for the insults that were looming. Only a defective Axa would feel anything at betrayal, since we weren't supposed to care what others thought of us. It was foolish of me to have any emotions toward a prey animal, knowing that she saw me as a tool. Tava played at diplomacy because she wanted her planet to be left alone.
Believe an Axa would have the bravado to fly at Earth.
The Venlil's squeaky voice hit my ears, carrying far due to its pitch.
Those Zerillians are lucky you were able to rescue them.
Zhao's footsteps came closer.
This guy is very high up on the ladder too. We got him before he could turn on humans. He was boasting about using us. Right in that cell there.
I rose to my paws, watching as the Venlil moved up to the window pane. Fear was visible in her side-facing eyes, despite the barrier between us. Her pupils managed to lock on me, and shock trickled through her expression. That erased any doubt that Tava could recognize me, rather than assuming all Axa looked the same.
Chief Hunter Isif!
To my amazement, the Venlil whirled around with an assertive posture.
Why the fuck would you arrest Isif?
I just told you. He's manipulating us into fighting the Axa's battles, then turning to subjugate us all once it's done.
Zhao answered.
It's what he says behind closed doors. We couldn't let him spy on Earth.
Tava swiveled back to the glass.
Isif, is any of that true? You really speak like that to the other Greys, and you had those sickly Zerillians on your ship.
This is hopeless. There's no way she'll believe me. Yes to both, I sighed. But I was trying to stop Shaza from attacking the humans without being killed for treason. I rescued those Zerulians from her farm at great personal risk. Not that you care, I added silently. It took a colossal effort to force a stoic expression. The Venlil backed away from the window, and I resigned myself to her fleeing in disgust. Governor Tava was open-minded for speaking with me at all. Few in the Republic would support her hearing my side of the story. I appreciated that gesture as a sign of respect. The door clicked open without warning, and an alarmed Secretary General rushed after Tava. The Venlil had unlocked my cell from the outside. To my amazement, she seemed to be letting me out. My maw dropped with shock. Why would a prey ruler trust the word of an Axa? The governor flicked her ears.
Let Isif go, right now. Whatever favors I am owed by humanity, I'm calling them in.
What are you doing?
Zhao tugged the Venlil back and hastily shut the door.
You can't possibly believe that story. What he said to Shaza.
Was theatric so he wouldn't get executed. Isif wants an end to the war and to cattle farming. Maya told me that much, and yes, I trust him with my life.
Elias Maya didn't forsake me. Jones was right. And Prophet. Maybe she guessed who he told from the start. Secretary General Zhao gaped at Tava.
Have you considered that Elias was confused or deceived himself?
Not at all. Maya's dying wish was for me to make peace with the Axa.
She responded.
As he bled out in my arms. That was what he asked. He was a good man.
I'm sorry for your loss, but you cannot trust the Greys. You know that. We ran empathy tests on every Arxer we captured at the cradle, and not a one passed.
ISIF is different.
You have no evidence to support that. The science says the Arxer are a sociopathic race. You know how many human volunteers failed the empathy test? 0.
Individual results can vary. You have your people with predator disease.
But it would be different if every soldier was a sociopath. I don't think this is a test a high-ranking Dominion officer can pass.
But ISIF will pass, Zhao. What does it hurt to humor me? Give him the test, and if he passes, you'll let him go with me.
There was a long silence as the humans stared down the prey leader. The Secretary General offered a reluctant nod at last, and called for guards to transport me to the lab. Despite Zhao's stubbornness, he seemed unwilling to alienate the Venlil. I was shocked that Tava had fought for me, and I couldn't fathom how to express my gratitude. Politeness wasn't a field I had any practice in. I decided to comply with the human escort, embracing the conditions of my release. It was ironic that my defectiveness would bolster my standing with the United Nations. Perhaps General Jones would peek at the results too, to ensure I hadn't pulled a long con on her. The empathy test was the least of my concerns. Instead, I was worried how the Terrans fared against Chaza. The pack predators had wormed their way back into my thoughts again. I wanted to ensure their continued survival, now more than ever. Knowing that Maya's final request was about the Arx's future renewed my trust in his kind. Humanity was interested in reforming our society, and I could guide them to an age of prosperity.